This is the stuff you really came here for. We asked you what was important and what kind of issues. So the things that we're going to cover are corporate structure, digital communications, and the number 3 was how do you advocate for policy? And we put together a stellar panel, and our moderator today, come on up, Moira Nelson, and if you give her a big round of applause, we could convince her to run for a political office, right? Come on, we want more women to run. Go. That was sad, guys. Come on, I want you to run. You're going to sit there. So, Brendan, Sean, and Marcia, come on up.
First, I just want to say thank you to Carrie and Marcia for having me here. It's an honor to be up here on stage with such distinguished individuals. So I want to introduce our panelists. First, on the end, we have Marcia Marley, who you met earlier. She is the co-founder and president of BluewaveNJ. She has been advocating for progressive issues in the state of New Jersey for many, many, many years. Next to her is Brendan Gill. Brendan is a current Essex County freeholder. He has been involved in public service for also many, many years. He ran Senator Lautenberg's office. He also ran Senator Cory Booker's office. And he has his own public relations firm and is the campaign manager for Phil Murphy. And on my right here is Sean Spiller. Sean is a high school teacher in Wayne. He teaches science, and yesterday we had the Science March, right? Go Science. Sean is also a town council member here in Montclair. He is also, all 3 of them are Montclair residents. Sean and his wife Lauren live here in Montclair. He is also the secretary and treasurer for NJEA, which is a very powerful union, teachers union here in the state of New Jersey. All right, so we're ready? So one of the things that I've noticed in the past few months is that lots of, the new activists in particular, they don't really understand what it means to sort of get behind one issue and be really clear and specific about what it is they're sort of fighting for. There's a lot of this sort of, oh my God, everything kind of stinks right now, and that's sort of the energy that I think they're bringing to their legislators, which I don't think is all that effective. So I wanted to sort of focus in on how we can be as effective as possible. So the first question I have for you is when a group does identify one issue that they want to sort of fight for and they want to launch a campaign around that particular issue, what are some of the first steps that they should take to make that happen? Whether it's from researching it, Anna Lilia spoke about just basically Googling it, but that's what I'd like to start with. Go for it, Marcia.
I want to put in a plug for another organization right now, and that is NJPP, New Jersey Policy Perspectives, because you said what is one of the first things you would do is you need some research. We have one think tank, progressive think tank in our state, and they're well respected, and when we get things passed, it's because we've used their research. And so one of the first things you need to do is get the research on the issue, make sure that you can use that research to then influence legislators.
Thank you.
No question. I would agree with that and wholeheartedly. I mean, I also think when you're building something and you want to organize around a particular issue, one of the first things that you can do is identify potential supporters of whatever the particular issue that you're working on. And it might sound like a common sense thing to do, but I've seen in my experience I've been on both sides of this table. I've been on the table as a staff member for elected officials that groups are trying to advocate with, and I've been also an elected official myself. And I think one of the best things that groups, especially because there are a lot of new organizations that are forming, which I think is wonderful, is to try to identify people early on from the top down who are going to be probably supportive of the issue that they're working on, and to reach out for those people early, even if it's just lending the name of a council person or of a county official, people that are already maybe in the existing structure, bring them in early, and that will help you long term in your advocacy.
Great, so identifying allies, that's great. Did you have anything to add? Go ahead.
I'd just say, I think there's a real benefit to the energy that you talk about in terms of the broad sense. But specifically when you talk about even an issue, I think it's important to really understand what's the ask and what's the goal around that issue. And I think that matters that when you decide to have that meeting or you get the other organizations that you want to partner with, if you're guided by the mission of what our goal is, it really helps you to focus in the right area. And it also helps when you go into that person of influence with a specific question that you can hopefully get a response on. It's not just that we care about some issue and the person can say to you, oh, I do too. More specifically, it can be, oh, we care about this issue, excuse me, and this is what we would like from you. This is how you can help us move along.
Great.
That's an important part.
So this was awesome. So research, identifying allies, being really clear about your strategy and what it is you're trying to accomplish and making sure you have an ask. So that leads right into then, what is the best way to get the attention of your legislator? Is it scheduling an appointment, showing up in person? Is it tweeting? Is it emailing? All of the above?
It depends on the legislator, but I think the first step is making that meeting, if you can. And I think that's the next, when you actually want to make sure that you're not getting that meeting and you want the meeting, then go for the tweeting and the calling and etc. and then come back.
Gotcha.
Also ask all your allies to come in. So the people that they actually care about. Some of our best meetings when we were having a hard time getting something passed was asking the AARP to come in or some other group that agreed with us on that particular issue, but would help persuade.
Right.
So getting the allies that help persuade.
Gotcha.
All right, and also starting out with asking for a meeting and seeing if you can get it. If you can't, then go in with calls and other meetings.
Great.
No, I would just add, I think that first part is so important, though, that ask to a meeting, because I think, excuse me, any individual doesn't want to really be just surprised with an issue that they weren't aware of and then start getting bombarded with a lot of messages. If you have an ask, reach out, and hopefully, we can accommodate a meeting and then have a conversation about it, and maybe we can be allies and move forward on something as opposed to immediately assume a position that somebody's not going to be
Getting defensive, right. So would you say in these meetings it's best to go in with 4, 5, 6 people that are really, leaders versus a large group? I know that they've been launching this every Tuesday, doing this, Trump Tuesday type of thing where there's 30, 40, 50 people showing up at the senators' offices. And I'm just wondering, is that really all that effective? I mean, you always want to see your constituents,
I think that absolutely it's been effective, right? So there's no question that organizations, I see many of the leaders in the audience here today, so there's no question that organizing when it came to the debate around the ACA was extremely effective with members of Congress, and congratulations and thank you for everything that you did on that issue. And from a more broader perspective, I think there's a couple of things that you need to do. You need to, one, always make that ask for the meeting, or for what we're seeing right now, constituents asking for a town hall meeting, right? So that's the frame, right? The second part of that, and this can apply both to federal and state decision makers. And Marcia mentioned this when she talked and gave the example of State Senate President Sweeney on the issue of marriage equality, is that when you eventually do get that meeting, either with the elected official and or the staff, that there's one part about the research too, is take the time to identify staff members who work for elected officials. They oftentimes are much more important than the elected official themselves. And when you want to be a good advocate, it's important to identify and know who those people are. Know the people who work for these people and the issues that they cover. But I would say once you eventually get that meeting, it's important for an elected official to understand that you represent a constituency. So don't come to that meeting, quite frankly, unless you have some viable metric that shows that you represent a constituency that elected official cares about. The petition in the district was a classic example. We have many ways to do that now through our social media organizing technique. So that's an important thing. And finally, in terms of offices, I still think calling is the most. It's great to use to email, Twitter, and social media platforms, but offices that take volumes of calls, I can tell you firsthand, that's how they register whether something is happening out there. So you should always organize calling whenever you can around whatever issue that it is that you care about.
Great, thank you so much. And that did lead to my next question, which is about how to be really well prepared. When I'm coaching people on scheduling an appointment and going in for that meeting, I always tell them to bring what I call a one sheet, which just lists out, their name and their contact information. Sometimes people don't even think to leave that behind, as well as a few data points if they have them, because if there's several people in the meeting and you're spewing out information and data and statistics, the person on the receiving end might not be able to take all that in. So having that written down, is there anything else on a one sheet or anything else that you can do besides petitions that you can to just show that you're well prepared? Anything else we're missing?
As you say, facts. Sometimes it's good to come with a fact sheet about the issue that you can hand to them,
Right.
or a letter
Okay.
personally that you can hand to the staff or to them. Also, I would suggest that you thank them if they already care, if they agree with you, thank them. That's also an important thing. They need to hear both sides.
Great, thank you.
I think it's right. If you're going to those meetings, I think it's also a good practice to review what you want to say and the points that you want to make. Because whenever you're in these meetings, the time goes by way faster than you think, and you usually have a lot of things that you want to talk about around a particular issue. Identifying the primary priorities and hitting those in order and making sure you're on message and doing so in a way that's going to be productive to getting your goal. I think going through that, practicing that a few times before your meeting is going to help you prepare when you get in there.
Thank you. These are all very helpful tips. So how can we be supportive of our Democratic members of Congress or other state level officials? I often forget, I'm blessed that most of my legislators are Democrats, so I feel like, I don't need to call them or I don't need to thank them. Is there anything else we can be doing right now to let them know that we do support some of the tough decisions that they're up against? Is that important?
I think sometimes it can be overwhelming. For instance, Payne's staff said, don't call us so much. We agree with you, please don't call us so much. But at the same time, they do need to hear thank yous, and maybe you can respond to that.
I think that's exactly right. I think it's definitely appreciated, no question about it, when elected officials, staff members hear positive news, right? Especially if we do believe that they are allies for our cause. And that's often something that does not happen. I think that's one. I think two, also, just to kind of, and I don't think so much that it needs to be a thank you. It's our responsibility as elected officials to represent our constituents. So I don't think it's so much a pat on the back, but I think it's a feeling that when you are in a public service position, when you are, and maybe Sean, you can probably speak to this too, when you're an elected official, you don't want to just feel kind of us and them. You want to be a part of the solution. That's what motivates a lot of people. Many people in public service are in it for the right reasons. And when we bring an issue to them, or when we bring something we need to get done, we have to present it as a collective solution. Not, this is the problem and you have to solve it. We have to present it as, this is the problem and here's how we can solve it. And I think that's a big part of engagement, and that makes, I think, the people who serve in those leadership positions feel better. It makes them feel that they have people with them, so they can actually get out the support to get those things done.
That we're behind you.
And sometimes that part, sometimes we miss that, and I think that's something to keep in mind as you're doing your organizing.
And I think that holds true, and as you mentioned, for Democrats, but I think that holds true with both sides of the aisle, because especially in the climate we're in now, looking for those solutions and looking for ways that even people we don't always agree with or often don't agree with on almost everything, if we can find those solutions on some issues,
some common ground.
Let's work together on those pieces, and that can happen on both sides of the aisle.
Great, that's great. This is really awesome. So, two more questions. And you led right into this one too. You guys are really good. How do we navigate this process when our representative is not a Democrat or doesn't align with us on these particular issues. And I think we're seeing a lot of this right now. Members of the 11th Congressional District, fighting up against Reeling Heights. Any tips on how to, it's real easy when they're in our camp, right? So, any suggestions?
Be polite. That's number one. And even with Republicans, come in and say, thank you for meeting with me, all right?
Sure.
And then state your position and why. And that's when the fact sheet and the rehearsal comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it matters. I've done it on reproductive rights for every Republican Congress. We're at the Center for Reproductive Rights. I've done it on easier issues, and sometimes it's issues that they may agree with you, others it's not. But if you're telling a story that they can understand, and even when they disagree with you, say, and if you come prepared and you respect their authority, but come prepared and give your opinions, they have to listen.
Marcia, do you, just one quick question for her. Do you make sure that you have people in the room that can share from a personal experience on each of those issues when you go in?
I do. I definitely do. I think that's really important, but I also, as I said, try to get petitions too. And I get people from their district to come in. So when I'm going for those, I get people with a story from their district.
Got it. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that homework that we talked about earlier is also very important here, that whether it be a congressperson or any elected official, having a little bit of understanding as to their philosophies and what they think is important, in that when you're presenting your case on your issue, you can still angle it in a way that maybe they relate to a little bit better than the direct issue you're talking about, and whether it be financial. Maybe you're saying to a congressperson, look, we know that you've been a big proponent of making sure dollars come back to your district, and the way you're moving on this issue is going to cut off funding. We need to make sure we're working together.
So shift the strategy a little bit based on who you're speaking to. That makes a lot of sense. And then the last question I have is, what can we be doing here in the state of New Jersey to sort of protect us against what's happening in D.C., because I know there's so much focus up here, and I think that there's a lot of power, particularly this year. We are going to elect a new governor. How can we utilize our state legislators, our state senators and state assembly people? What advice do you have for that? Because I think there's something there that we can get them to propose bills that might help us.
Work together. I love all of the energy in this room. And let's work for a platform. We'll decide on that platform. It has to, we can't say, I want everything, but you decide which are your priorities and work to pass them to make a beacon of progressive light in our state.
Wonderful. I love you. Go ahead.
Well said. It's hard to follow up onto that. I would say a couple of things on this, and I do think it's important. Clearly I have a choice in this, in this race, but participating in that race, there is a tremendous amount of focus already on 2018. And I would just remind all the organizations that are here and in this room, and those who are watching right now, that the first benchmark of what we are going to do as progressives to push back against this agenda is going to be in New Jersey and in Virginia. Those are the two races that have gubernatorial races, two races that have state legislators. The entire state assembly here in New Jersey is up, the entire state Senate. That is a big thing, I think, for us to make sure that we participate in, regardless of which candidate. I think participation in that is very important. I would also just say that participation in local levels of government is unbelievably important right now. So it might not be your local council or county elected official's job to opine about these national issues, but we have to use, and put you on the spot too, Councilman, we have to use those vehicles and the people who sit in those positions to make sure that they are voicing and are speaking up on our behalf. So you asked a question about how do you effectively communicate? Maybe, and it doesn't need to be, because there are Democrats sometimes who are not where we want them to be on progressive issues. So this applies to whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. But the person who sits in that seat has people who serve in local elected, usually congressional folks have people under them, county folks have people under them, even our local, mayors and council folks have an organization under an organization, and all of those levels need to be touched. What does that mean in actuality? It means that when you go to see a congressman, right, it sometimes helps to have X amount of towns pass resolutions on the issue that you care about, right? Doesn't mean they can be non-binding, but when you walk into that meeting, you should say, both counties have passed non-binding resolutions. 45 out of, if it's a state legislative district, 10 out of your 12 towns that you represent have passed this resolution to say they care about issue X. How are you gonna respond to that? That's not necessarily confrontational. That's saying, how are you gonna respond to the people that you represent as our representative, whether it's a state representative, federal, or a county? It's something that we really can do. And I'll finally just put, I cannot stress this enough. This year is in 2017 is unbelievably big for us to participate across the board.
Yes.
We must participate. Whoever comes out of this Democratic primary, I obviously have a choice, but whoever comes out of this Democratic primary, we must get behind, because the alternative we must get behind.
Yes.
Okay, if we did not learn this lesson in 2016, that there is much more that unites us than divides us, then shame on us.
Thank you.
I'll just quickly highlight some of the examples that Brent was talking about. I think we saw last year a great push around earned sick leave, and it was really at the local level that happened. And of course, that pressure, that's exactly what Brent was talking about.
Great example.
And I think right now we're also seeing that in the debate around sanctuary cities. We saw that right here in Montclair and some of the other communities. That discussion, that debate has a real impact, certainly on individuals in the community, but also has an impact in terms of what county elected officials or state elected officials, and of course beyond, do. And I think the more we don't ignore any opportunity to make a difference, the better off we are. It doesn't always have to be state, it doesn't always have to be federal. It can be local, it can be at any level, and we should take advantage of those opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to give time for a few questions. Yeah. And then what I'll do is I'll repeat the question into the mic so that those people that aren't here. Go ahead. Just.
I don't know if this is the right panel to ask the question. I'm from District 3. We have the congressman in New Jersey who did not flip, and he's the one leading the charge to kill Obamacare right now.
Yes.
Tom MacArthur.
I started an individual group a couple months ago. I'm a 63-year-old retired physician with no prior political experience. I have organized, I have gotten all the groups together. We can't get people energized to participate in this stuff. I did a town hall February 22nd. We did not come. There were over 500 people there. We got a lot of publicity, a lot of press. It was great, right? But when I asked many, many people in many, many groups, can I get a volunteer to help me plan this? Not one person, not one. New Jersey Citizen Action finally helped me. So basically, it was one person in New Jersey Citizen Action and myself who planned like a wedding for 500 people.
Right.
So, and then the last thing we did was a rally on Monday night. New Jersey Citizen Action told me not to do it on the town hall, we should do a rally. We notified thousands of people, including actually the other New Jersey Police County, which has 1,100 members. They're all District 3. There were thousands of people notified. 75 people showed up to that rally. I got a major news station there, but 75 people showed up. I'm here today. I drove an hour and 45 minutes to get there because I'm just ready to give up. The congressman is part of me personally. He's called a press conference to name me. He's insulting me in letters to the editor back and forth because he's identified me, obviously, as the only person who's really leading the charge against him. But I'm tired of being the person on the front taking all the bullets. So basically, I'm here today so somebody can tell me why I shouldn't quit. Because it's just too hard to be the only person doing this.
I'll answer. 75 is a win. That's where you start. I know you weren't relegated, Katie. We've been at this a long time. 75 years. Verona, when you said red as a district, I don't know if Laura thinks here. Verona started with 5 women around the table. They don't have 200. No one said it was going to be easy. It's messy, it's chaotic. But right now, on live streaming, we have but there are a lot of people down in the south who want some leadership, and that's what we have to do.
I notified people in the South about this conference. I asked anybody if they wanted to go. Nobody responded. And unfortunately, you said if we get enough response to live stream it, so I told them that, and some people responded to me. So I know they're there and they're live streaming it, that's great, but, again,
We have another panel after this that's going to talk about specifically all kinds of, but while we have these, let's talk about policy, if you don't mind. We'll cover that. Sir?
My question has to do with messenger. I was at the first Lance Town Hall, I got an opportunity to ask some questions. I was observed town halls. The most effective messengers have been those that have been able to personalize the message. How important, as an organization moves forward to actually approaching your MRC, there are people that are going to want to ask their question or deliver the message, but aren't the best ones to deliver it. How do you approach that? You can create a great message, but lose it in the message.
It's got to be that personal story, definitely. That's crucial.
Can you
And-
repeat the question? We can't
Sure,
hear it back here.
I'll repeat it. He was, the question was, how do you, when you have an organization and you have a particular issue and you're ready to go and present it to a member of Congress or other legislator, and there's people that are really excited and anxious and want to be the ones to present it, but they may not be the most effective messenger for that message. And so Marcia was talking about it really needs to be a personal story. Go ahead, Marcia.
For example, right now for the healthcare, we're putting together videos of personal stories for our forum on the 11th. It's very important when you go to the office to have people with actual stories. Do op-ed. Even if you have the statistics, start with that personal story that it impacted you. I couldn't agree more. It's the most effective.
Elizabeth?
My question is, we've been trying to be, at NJEA 11 for Change, very broad tent and kind of staying away from any particular platform or issue unless it presented itself obviously, like the AHCA. Sorry, that's the question is, we've been really successful at focusing people's energy on the lack of leadership and the lack of accessibility, and then not being overly engineering about the issues that are important to individual members. Do any of you think that we should now, or look for a time soon or later to pivot towards more of a platform issue? And I'm just curious.
I'm just going to repeat the question. Elizabeth is with NJ 11th for Change. So far, they have been focusing mostly on the fact that their Rodney Frelinghuysen isn't accessible and his particular platform, but they haven't gotten behind any one particular issue yet. So the question is it maybe time to get behind specific issues as an organization?
I'll speak to that in a sense. I think as an organization evolves and matures, and you see it with Blue Wave and other entities, that one of the ways you can kind of capture the energy there is to start asking the individuals who are part of the group what their interests are. And once you start identifying that, you can create many subgroups and other smaller bodies within the larger one that can then lead the charge around that issue. And then they can move forward with that in any way that they see fit within the context of larger parameters again. But that allows, I think, people to self-identify what they find interesting and what they think is important. And once you've done that, once you've set them up in that way and you offer that support, those groups can be the ones, as part of the larger group, that brings that message forward. I think it's a way to allow more people in the group, again, to be involved around issues that they care about.
Great. Go ahead.
I would just say too, I mean, I think the accessibility issue broadly, both for your organization and for others that are out there, is an excellent one to continue to pound the drum on. And this is respectful, most people are not following issues the way that probably all of us in this room are, but the issue of accessibility to your representative is something that's very easy for people to understand. and it does not, and it relies less on their political persuasion, and it's a great entry point. So I would not give that up. And in the case of Congressman Freeholder, I would absolutely not give it up because he still refused to hold a town hall meeting. If you look at an example of where we were able to swing a district back in the 16 cycle, Congressman Garrett was basically one of the main reasons that that we were able to defeat him collectively is that they did a very good job of seizing one thing, which was his refusal to give any more money to the Republican National Congressional Campaign Committee because they were supporting openly gay candidates, and they pounded that issue through the entire 2-year cycle. And that was a decision that was made. If you look at that, and it's not an apples to apples comparison, but if you kind of look at it, that was a decision that was made probably at this time in that election cycle. That decision was made around 2015. I think you absolutely should maintain, in addition to what else you're doing, that accessibility and town hall platform.
Great, thank you. Anna Lilia, you wanted to say something?
One more question here.
Hi, I'm Lily at the Westfield 2020. I have a question about setting up meetings with legislators, especially if they're from the opposition. Do you think it's better for people from groups to show up as part of the group or as individuals, or do you think it depends on the circumstances? In our case, 4 members of our healthcare committee went to meet with Lynn, and they did it without identifying themselves as part of our group, which really doesn't have a big public case yet. So I just want to get some feedback about that.
So the question was, when trying to meet with the opposition, meaning an elected official that is not a Democrat, is it more effective to go in as just an individual constituent with a few, fellow constituents, or represent yourself as part of a group? And I think the question maybe if the group is sort of known and maybe, like NJ 11th, that the perception is that they're troublemakers, like maybe it's not a good idea to identify. Anybody?
Oh, I agree. If you can get a meeting with the actual congressman as constituents, 5 independent constituents, do it. Definitely. On the other hand, if you want to deliver a petition or something formal and it's from your group, then I would say go in as a group. It depends on your purpose and what you hope to get out of the meeting.
All right, so I just wanted to weigh in on this issue of a policy platform, because a lot of the organizations that have been around for a while signed on to, last November, onto what we are calling a working family, little w, little f, working family economic agenda. That includes not only economic issues, but also policy issues that we want to share. I think part of the reason we did that was because we wanted to operate on connecting to people's self-interest, right? What are the issues that are motivating you? This answers a little bit of how do you go from Facebook to real action is by connecting on self-interest, right? Like what is moving a particular group of people and what will move an elected. We have dozens of statewide organizations that signed on, and then we turned that into our candidate questionnaire, both for gubernatorial and now down ballot. So we want to share that, and I'll share that through Carrie, but it's critical in that if you have dozens of organizations going to a legislator saying, I want you to vote yes on A, B, C, D, whatever. If you have dozens and dozens of organizations and hundreds of people making that demand, it's more likely that we're going to get it. So that's...
Can I just add one other point? I just wanted to speak directly to the South Jersey and Congressman McCarthy example. You are winning. The fact that the congressman had to take that position, the way he had to take that position, and the public nature, he is now in a much more vulnerable state. So although maybe we weren't successful in moving him where we wanted him to be on that policy, there was real value to what you did. So please know that.
And I want to add, he saw you as a threat. All right? He saw you as a threat. You were successful. So just remember that and keep fighting. Keep fighting.
Don't give up.
And just so you know, a couple of people from South Jersey tuned in to say they want to go with you.
Yeah. Great.
I just want to thank each of you. This was really wonderful. And thank you for the opportunity to have me up here.